Steve Harvey was in the middle of what seemed like a routine Family Feud taping when a contestant said something that stopped him cold. What happened next would become one of the most emotional moments in the show's history, reminding everyone watching that sometimes family isn't about blood, it's about who shows up when you need them most. The Williams family from Atlanta was facing off against the Parker family from Texas, and the energy in the studio was electric as always. But Steve Harvey, with his years of experience reading people, noticed something different about one of the contestants. Marcus Williams, a 32-year-old man in a sharp navy suit, kept glancing toward the audience with an expression Steve couldn't quite place. Not nervousness, exactly. More like he was looking for someone who wasn't there. Marcus stood at the podium with his family, his younger sister Tasha beside him, their cousin James, Aunt Patricia, and Uncle Raymond rounding out the team. They were doing well in the game, laughing and high-fiving after each correct answer. But every time there was a pause, Steve noticed Marcus would touch something on his wrist, a simple bracelet that looked handmade, the kind a child might craft. During a commercial break, Steve wandered over to the Williams family. "Y'all are doing great out here," he said warmly. "Marcus, I gotta ask about that bracelet. Looks like it's got a story." Marcus looked down at his wrist, and his whole demeanor changed. His confident lawyer composure softened into something more vulnerable. "It does have a story, Steve. A big one." "Well, you can't say that and not tell me," Steve said with an encouraging smile. Marcus took a breath. "This bracelet was made for me by the woman who saved my life. The woman who changed everything for me." Steve's eyebrows rose. "Saved your life? That's a strong statement." "It's the truth," Marcus said simply. "I wouldn't be standing here without her. I wouldn't be a lawyer. I wouldn't be anything without what she did for me." The stage manager was signaling that they needed to get back to taping, but Steve held up a hand. Something told him this was important. "Who is this woman?" "Her name is Dorothy Patterson," Marcus said, his voice thick with emotion. "She was my foster mother. Well, she still is. Always will be." Steve nodded slowly, understanding starting to dawn. "Tell me about Dorothy." "Can I tell you during the game?" Marcus asked. "I feel like if I start now, I'm going to cry, and we haven't even finished playing yet." Steve laughed and squeezed Marcus's shoulder. "You got it, brother. We'll come back to this." The game resumed, and the Williams family continued their winning streak. When it came time for Marcus to answer a question, Steve looked at him with purpose. "All right, Marcus. We surveyed 100 people. Top answers on the board. Name something people say when they want to thank someone." Marcus didn't hesitate. "I love you." Steve paused, the typical game show rhythm breaking for just a moment. "I love you," he repeated. The answer revealed on the board as the number 2 answer, and the audience applauded. But Steve wasn't moving to the next contestant yet. "Marcus, that was a quick answer. Is that what you want to say to Dorothy?" Marcus nodded, his eyes already getting shiny. "Among other things, yeah." "Tell us about her," Steve said, abandoning the game format. The producers could edit if they needed to. This was more important. Marcus took a breath, steadying himself. "When I left the foster care system after high school, I had nowhere to go. No family, no plan. Just a acceptance letter to community college, and no idea how I was going to make it work." The studio had gone quiet. Even the competing family was leaning in to listen. "I was working at a grocery store, trying to save money, sleeping in my car most nights. Dorothy Patterson came through my checkout line one day. We got to talking, the way you do with regular customers. She'd come in every week, always to my line, and we'd chat. She knew I was trying to go to college. She knew I was struggling." Steve was nodding, his expression soft with understanding. "One day it was winter, really cold, and I must have looked terrible because Dorothy asked me straight up, 'Where are you staying?' And I tried to lie, said I was staying with friends, but she saw right through it." Marcus's voice cracked. "She said, 'I have a spare room. It's yours if you need it. No strings attached.'" "And you took it?" Steve asked gently. "Not at first," Marcus admitted. "I was proud, didn't want charity. But she was persistent. She said, 'It's not charity. It's what people do for each other. One day, when you're in a position to help someone else, you will. That's how it works. Tasha, Marcus's sister, was crying openly. She reached over and squeezed her brother's hand. So I moved into her spare room, Marcus continued. And Steve, this woman, she didn't just give me a place to sleep. She made sure I had everything I needed for school. When I said I couldn't afford textbooks, she found a way to get them for me. When I had to work late and miss class, she talked to my professors on my behalf. When I got sick and had no insurance, she took me to the doctor and paid for everything out of pocket. How long did you live with her? Steve asked. 4 years, Marcus said. All through community college, and then when I transferred to a 4-year university, she wouldn't let me leave. She said, "You focus on school. You can pay rent to a landlord later. Right now, you stay here and become everything you're meant to be." Steve had to turn away for a moment, his own eyes glistening. When he turned back, he asked, "She believed in you." "More than anyone ever had," Marcus confirmed. "More than I believed in myself. When I said I wanted to go to law school, people laughed. I had no money, no connections, no family background in college, let alone graduate school. But Dorothy said, 'You're going to be a lawyer, Marcus.' I know it as surely as I know my own name." "Did she help you through law school too?" Marcus shook his head. "That's when I had to be the one who was stubborn. She wanted to help, would have done anything. But Steve, this woman is a retired school teacher. She doesn't have money to throw around. She'd already given me so much. I took out loans, worked 3 jobs, did whatever I had to do. But she was there emotionally every single day. Every exam, every interview, every moment I wanted to quit, she was on the phone telling me I could do it." "Where is Dorothy now?" Steve asked. "Is she here?" Marcus's face fell slightly. "No, she's back home. I haven't seen her in 5 years." The audience made sympathetic sounds. Steve looked confused. 5 years? Why so long?" "Because I'm stubborn," Marcus said with a sad laugh. "When I graduated law school, I had so much debt. Student loans, credit cards from books and expenses, everything. I told myself I wasn't going to see Dorothy again until I could look her in the eye and tell her I did it. Not just that I became a lawyer, but that I made it, really made it. That all her faith in me paid off." "Marcus," Steve said gently, "I'm sure she just wanted to see you. I'm sure she didn't care about any of that." "I know," Marcus said, wiping his eyes. "I know that now. But I wanted to give her something back, Steve. I wanted to show her that her investment in me wasn't wasted. For 5 years, I've been working crazy hours at my firm, taking every case I could, saving every penny, because I had a plan." "What plan?" Marcus smiled through his tears. "Dorothy's house, the house where I lived in that spare room. When I moved out, she told me she'd taken out a second mortgage to help with some of my school expenses, even though I told her not to. I found out later she was struggling to make the payments. That amazing woman who gave me everything was about to lose her house because of me." "Oh, Marcus," Steve said softly. "So for the past year," Marcus continued, his voice stronger now, "I've been making her mortgage payments. Anonymously. She doesn't know. She thinks the bank has some kind of relief program. But Steve, last month, I made the final payment. Her house is paid off, completely, and she doesn't know." The audience erupted in applause. Steve had to take a moment, pulling out his handkerchief to wipe his eyes. "Brother, that is beautiful. That is really beautiful." "I've been trying to find the courage to go see her and tell her," Marcus said, "to thank her for everything, to tell her I love her. That's why I keep touching this bracelet. She made it for me when I moved in, said it was to remind me I wasn't alone anymore. I've worn it every day since." Steve looked at Marcus for a long moment, then glanced toward his producer in the wings. Something unspoken passed between them, and Steve's face broke into a huge smile. "Marcus, what if I told you that you don't have to wait anymore?" Marcus looked confused. "What do you mean?" "Your sister Tasha is a very sneaky woman," Steve said, gesturing to Tasha, who was crying and grinning at the same time. She reached out to our producers 3 weeks ago. She told us this whole story. And Marcus, we found Dorothy." Marcus's face went white. "What?" "She's here," Steve said. "Right now. She's been in the audience this entire time, watching you play, listening to you talk about her." Marcus turned toward the audience, scanning frantically. Steve pointed to a section about halfway back. "Stand up, Dorothy! Let him see you!" An older woman rose from her seat, and the camera found her immediately, her face projected on the big screens. She was in her early 60s, with silver hair pulled back in a neat bun, wearing a simple blue dress. Her face was already wet with tears, but she was smiling the most radiant smile. "Dorothy?" Marcus whispered, and then louder. "Dorothy." He started moving before anyone could stop him, jumping off the stage and running up the aisle. The audience parted for him, everyone crying and applauding. Dorothy met him halfway, and when they came together, Marcus lifted her off her feet in a hug that looked like it might never end. "My boy," Dorothy was saying, over and over. "My sweet boy." "I'm sorry," Marcus was sobbing. "I'm so sorry I stayed away. I'm so sorry." "Hush now," Dorothy said, cupping his face in her hands. "You're here now. That's all that matters." Steve had made his way up the aisle too, a microphone in hand. He waited until they'd had their moment, then gently approached. "Dorothy, can you tell us about this young man?" Dorothy kept one arm around Marcus, holding him like she might never let go. "This is my son," she said simply. "Not by birth, but by choice, by love. This is my son, and I have never been more proud of anyone in my entire life." "Did you know he was going to be on the show?" Steve asked. "Not until 3 weeks ago when his sister called me," Dorothy admitted. "She told me what he'd been doing, about the mortgage payments. I had no idea. I thought there was some kind of bank program. Marcus, you didn't have to do that." "Yes, I did," Marcus said firmly, his arm around her shoulders. "You gave me everything. Everything I am is because of you. The house is just a start, Dorothy. I'm going to make sure you never have to worry about anything ever again." "I never worried about you," Dorothy said, looking up at him. "From the first day you walked into my home, I knew you were going to do great things. You had it in you all along. I just helped you see it." Steve was openly crying now, not even trying to hide it. "Dorothy, why did you do it? Why did you take in a young man you barely knew and give him everything?" Dorothy smiled. "Because someone did it for me once. When I was young, struggling, a teacher took me under her wing and helped me become a teacher myself. She told me, 'Pay it forward.' That's all I ask. When you see someone who needs help, and you can give it, you do. Marcus needed help. I could give it. It's that simple." "It's not simple," Marcus protested. "Most people wouldn't do what you did. Most people would have walked right past me in that grocery store without a second thought." "Then most people miss out on knowing someone as wonderful as you," Dorothy said simply. "Marcus, having you in my home, watching you grow and succeed, that was my gift. You think you owe me something. But sweetheart, you already gave me more than you know. You gave me purpose. You gave me joy. You made me feel like I mattered. You do matter," Marcus said intensely. "You matter more than you could ever know. Dorothy, I need to tell you something." He pulled back slightly so he could look at her directly. "When I became a lawyer, I specialized in family law, specifically foster care cases. I represent kids aging out of the system, help them navigate their options, fight for their rights. I do it pro bono whenever possible." Dorothy's hand flew to her mouth. "Last year alone, I helped 43 young people," Marcus continued. "I helped them find housing, get into school, secure scholarships. Every single one of them reminds me of me. And every time I help one of them, I think of you. I think, this is what Dorothy would do. You didn't just save me. Through me, you've saved dozens of others. And I'm going to keep doing it for the rest of my life." Dorothy was full-on sobbing now, and so was most of the studio. Steve had given up on maintaining any composure and was wiping his eyes with both hands. You see this, people? Steve said to the audience and cameras. This is what love looks like. This is what it means to invest in someone's future. Dorothy didn't have a lot of money, but she had something more valuable. She had faith. She had love. She had the willingness to open her home and her heart to someone who needed it. He turned to Marcus and Dorothy. Come on, let's get you both on stage properly. I think we need to celebrate this. The entire studio gave them a standing ovation as Marcus and Dorothy walked hand in hand down to the stage. The Williams family swarmed them immediately, all of them hugging Dorothy and thanking her through their tears. Dorothy, Tasha said, you're part of our family now. You always have been, even though we didn't know you until today. Anyone who loves Marcus this much is our family too. Once everyone was settled and the emotion had died down enough to continue, Steve stood center stage with his arm around both Marcus and Dorothy. You know what we're going to do? We're throwing the game out. Both families are getting the grand prize today because this is bigger than any game. This is about life. This is about what really matters. The audience went wild with applause. The Parker family, who'd been watching the whole thing with tears streaming down their faces, cheered the loudest. But that's not all. Steve continued. Marcus, you've been working yourself to the bone to take care of Dorothy, to pay it forward to other kids who need help. Well, today, we're going to help you. My foundation is donating $100,000 to your pro bono practice. That's $100,000 to help foster youth transition to independence. Marcus looked shocked. Steve, that's incredible. Thank you. Thank you so much. We're not done, Steve said with a grin. Dorothy, you were a teacher for how many years? 35 years, Dorothy said. 35 years shaping young minds, Steve said. And then you retired and kept right on teaching. Except your classroom was your home, and your student was Marcus. In honor of that, we're establishing the Dorothy Patterson Scholarship Fund. It will provide scholarships to foster youth pursuing higher education. Because of you, dozens of kids are going to get the same chance Marcus got. Dorothy broke down completely. Marcus had to hold her up as she sobbed. I can't believe this, she kept saying. I can't believe any of this is happening. Believe it, Steve said warmly. And one more thing. Marcus, you said you've been working crazy hours. When's the last time you took a vacation? I don't even remember, Marcus admitted. Well, you and Dorothy are going on one. We're sending you both to Hawaii for 2 weeks, all expenses paid. You're going to sit on a beach, spend time together, and make up for those 5 years apart. The audience was on their feet again. Marcus and Dorothy were holding each other and crying so hard they couldn't speak. The Williams family gathered around them, creating a circle of love and support that was palpable even through the television cameras. As the celebration continued, Steve pulled Marcus aside for a moment. Can I ask you something? He said quietly. Anything, Marcus replied. That 5 years you stayed away, working to pay off her house. I understand the impulse. I really do. But what would you say to someone else in that situation? Someone who's trying to prove themselves before reconnecting with someone who helped them. Marcus thought about it, then smiled sadly. I'd tell them not to wait. I'd tell them that the people who really love you don't need you to prove anything. They just need you to show up. Dorothy would have been just as proud of me if I'd visited her while I was still struggling with debt. The time we lost, we can't get back. I was so focused on what I could give her that I forgot the thing she wanted most was just to see me, to know I was okay. Steve nodded approvingly. That's wisdom right there. And that's what we want people watching this to understand. Dorothy didn't help you because she wanted something in return. She helped you because that's what love does. It gives without keeping score. She taught me that, Marcus said, looking over at Dorothy, who was laughing with his family. She taught me that family isn't about DNA or legal documents. It's about who shows up, who stays, who believes in you when you don't believe in yourself. The taping continued for another hour, but it had transformed into something more than a game show. It became a conversation about foster care, about the thousands of young people aging out of the system every year with nowhere to go, about the everyday heroes like Dorothy who opened their homes and hearts. Dorothy shared more of her story, How she'd always wanted more children, but hadn't been able to have them. How she'd thought about becoming a foster parent but had been too scared to go through the official process. How meeting Marcus felt like fate. "I wasn't looking to save anyone that day in the grocery store," she said. "I was just buying milk and bread. But God puts people in your path for a reason." I saw this young man, and something in me recognized something in him. We were meant to find each other. Steve asked Dorothy about those years. Marcus lived with her. "Was it hard? Did you ever regret it?" "Never," Dorothy said firmly. "Not one single moment. Sure, there were challenges. Marcus worked nights, so he'd come home late and wake me up accidentally. He'd leave dishes in the sink because he was too tired to wash them. He played his music too loud when he studied." She smiled at Marcus fondly. But those weren't hardships. Those were the sounds of life, of someone living and growing and becoming. My house had been so quiet before Marcus. He brought energy and purpose back into it. "What about the financial burden?" Steve asked gently. Dorothy waved her hand dismissively. "I was a teacher. I knew how to stretch a dollar. And Marcus contributed what he could. He'd buy groceries, help with utilities. But more than that, he helped me in other ways. He fixed things around the house. He shoveled the driveway in winter. He kept me company. You can't put a price on having someone to talk to over dinner, someone to watch movies with, someone who cares if you had a good day." Marcus was nodding along, remembering. "She made me part of her life. She included me in everything. Her friends became my friends. Her church became my church. When holidays came around, she made sure I felt like I belonged. That first Christmas, she had presents under the tree for me. I cried because I hadn't had Christmas presents in years." "What did she get you?" Steve asked, smiling. "A briefcase," Marcus said, grinning through his tears. "A nice leather briefcase," she said. "Every lawyer needs a good briefcase. You're going to be a lawyer, so you need this." "I still have it. I carry it to court every single day." Dorothy beamed. "I knew even then. I knew you were destined for great things." As the show wound down, Steve had one final surprise. "Marcus, Dorothy, we've been contacted by several organizations who saw the video of your reunion during our taping breaks. The National Foster Care Association wants to bring you both in as speakers. Law firms across the country have reached out offering to support your pro bono work. And we've received over 10,000 messages from people who want to help foster youth because of your story." Marcus looked overwhelmed. 10,000? 10,000, Steve confirmed. "Your story touched something in people. It reminded us all that we have the power to change lives. Dorothy changed yours. You're changing others. And now, people who watch this are going to go out and change more lives. That's the ripple effect of love." The final moments of the show were spent with both families, Marcus and Dorothy at the center, talking about what comes next. Marcus announced that he was going to start a nonprofit specifically for foster youth transitioning to independence, and that Dorothy would be on the board of directors. "I spent 5 years trying to pay her back," Marcus said. "I'm going to spend the rest of my life paying it forward. Every kid who ages out of foster care should have a Dorothy. Until they do, I'm going to try to be there for as many as I can." Dorothy, her arm linked through Marcus's, added, "And I'm going to help him. I retired from teaching, but I'm not retired from making a difference. These kids need support. They need guidance. They need someone to believe in them. I've got plenty of belief left to give." When the cameras finally stopped rolling, Marcus and Dorothy sat together on the Family Feud steps, just the two of them, while the crew cleaned up around them. Steve came over and sat down with them. "That was something special," he said quietly. "In all my years doing this show, I've never seen anything quite like that." "Thank you for making this happen," Marcus said. "I don't know if I ever would have had the courage to go see her on my own." "You would have," Dorothy assured him. "You're the bravest person I know." "I learned that from you," Marcus said, squeezing her hand. Steve looked at them, this unlikely mother and son, and felt a lump in his throat. "You know what you two have given people today? You've given them hope. You've shown that family is what we make it, that love is what we choose it to be, and that one person really can change a life." "She changed mine," Marcus said simply. "And he changed mine right back," Dorothy replied. "That's how love works. It transforms everyone it touches." The episode aired 6 weeks later and immediately went viral. The clip of Marcus and Dorothy's reunion was viewed over 60 million times across social media platforms. The response was overwhelming and beautiful. Foster parents reached out to share their own stories. Young people who'd aged out of the system shared their struggles and their triumphs. And hundreds of people contacted Marcus's newly formed nonprofit, wanting to help, wanting to volunteer, wanting to be someone's Dorothy. The impact was real and measurable. In the months following the episode, foster care applications increased by 30% in Marcus's state. His nonprofit received enough donations to help over 200 young people with housing, education, and legal support. The Dorothy Patterson Scholarship Fund awarded its first 10 scholarships within 3 months. But perhaps the most beautiful outcome was the letters. Marcus and Dorothy received thousands of letters, but one in particular stood out. It was from a college student named James who'd been in foster care and aged out with nowhere to go. "I watched your episode alone in my car, which is where I've been living for 6 months," James wrote. "I saw myself in you, Marcus, and I saw what I wish I had in Dorothy. Your story made me realize I shouldn't be ashamed to ask for help. I reached out to a professor I trust, told her my situation, and she helped me find emergency housing and connected me with resources. I'm still struggling, but I'm not alone anymore. And someday, when I make it, I'm going to be someone's Dorothy too. We F-A-D-A. D-A-A. We A-D-A." Marcus framed that letter and hung it in his office. Dorothy has a copy in her living room, right next to a photograph from the Family Feud taping, the moment Marcus first saw her in the audience, his face a mixture of shock and overwhelming love. They have dinner together every Sunday now, a tradition they're making up for lost time with. Dorothy's spare room is still made up, still ready for anyone who might need it. Marcus is already working with 2 young people fresh out of the foster system, helping them navigate their first year of independence. She still tries to pay for dinner, Marcus told Steve when they spoke a few months after the episode aired. "Every Sunday, she tries to pay, and every Sunday, I have to remind her that she's paid enough for 1,000 lifetimes." "What does she say to that?" Steve asked. Marcus laughed. "She says, just because you're successful doesn't mean you can't let your mother treat you sometimes. She calls herself my mother now. It makes me cry every time." Steve smiled. "That's exactly what she is. Biology doesn't make a parent. Love does. Showing up does. Believing in someone when they can't believe in themselves does. Dorothy is your mother in every way that matters." "I know," Marcus said softly, "and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure she knows how grateful I am." The story of Marcus and Dorothy became more than a viral moment. It became a movement. The hashtag #BeSomeone'sDorothy trended for weeks, with people sharing stories of the Dorothys in their own lives or pledging to become one for someone else. Schools started mentorship programs. Churches organized support groups for foster youth. Community centers created safe spaces for young people transitioning out of the system. Marcus was invited to speak at law schools across the country about the importance of pro bono work and how legal professionals can specifically help foster youth. Dorothy accompanied him to many of these speaking engagements, her presence a living testament to the power of one person choosing to care. At one particularly memorable event at a law school, a student asked Marcus what he would say to people who want to help but feel like they don't have enough to give. Marcus thought for a moment, then said, "Dorothy wasn't rich. She didn't have a mansion to offer me. She had a spare room and a willingness to share it. She didn't have unlimited resources, but she shared what she had. You don't need to be wealthy to change someone's life. You just need to be willing. A meal, a safe place to sleep, a listening ear, help with job applications, someone to celebrate victories with. These things don't cost much, but they're priceless to someone who has nothing." Dorothy added, "And here's what people don't realize. It's not a burden. Marcus wasn't a burden to me. He was a blessing. Yes, I helped him, but he helped me too. He gave my life new meaning. He made me laugh. He reminded me why I became a teacher in the first place. When you open your heart to someone, You receive just as much as you give, maybe more. A young woman in the audience raised her hand. I was in foster care, she said quietly. I aged out 2 years ago. I'm here because of programs that helped me, but I still struggle every day. What you're describing, what Marcus found with you, Dorothy, it feels like a miracle. How do those of us who didn't find our Dorothy keep going? Dorothy stood up and walked to where the young woman was sitting. She took her hands. First of all, you're here. You're in law school. That means you're already a miracle all on your own. You did that. Give yourself credit for your own strength. The young woman started crying. Dorothy continued. Second, it's not too late to find your people. They're out there. Stay open to connections. Ask for help when you need it. Let people in. And third, be your own Dorothy. Treat yourself with the same faith and love that I gave Marcus. Believe in yourself, even when it's hard. You're worth believing in. The entire auditorium stood and applauded. Marcus watched from the stage, marveling at this woman who'd taken him in all those years ago. She was still doing it, still opening her heart, still believing in people. Later, as they drove home from the event, Marcus said, You know what's amazing? You're still doing exactly what you did for me. You're still giving people hope. Dorothy smiled. It's not work when it's who you are. Caring about people, believing in them, that's just part of my DNA. Where did you learn it? Marcus asked. Who was your Dorothy? Dorothy was quiet for a moment. My high school English teacher, Mrs. Chen. I was a mess of a teenager. My home life was chaotic. I was failing most of my classes. She saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. She tutored me after school, helped me apply to college, wrote recommendation letters, checked in on me even after I graduated. She's gone now, passed away about 10 years ago, but I think about her every day. Did you ever get to tell her what she meant to you? I did, Dorothy said, smiling at the memory. I went back to visit her a few years before she died. Told her I'd become a teacher because of her. She cried and told me that's all she ever wanted for her students to pay it forward. So when I met you, Marcus, it felt like honoring her legacy. She saved me. I saved you. You're saving others. That's how it's supposed to work. Marcus pulled the car over and turned to face her. Dorothy, I need you to know something. You didn't just save me from being homeless or struggling. You saved me from becoming bitter, from thinking the world was a cruel place where nobody cared. You restored my faith in humanity. That's what I'm passing on to the kids I help now. Not just practical support, but hope. The belief that good people exist and that life can get better. Dorothy cupped his face, the same way she had in the grocery store all those years ago when she'd first invited him to her home. You had that hope in you all along, sweetheart. I just reminded you where to find it. The conversation ended with a hug, as so many of their conversations did now. 5 years of lost time meant they were generous with their affection now, making up for every missed hug, every unsaid I love you, every moment they could have shared, but didn't. When the segment about Marcus and Dorothy finally aired, Steve Harvey was asked in interviews what made this particular reunion so special. After all, Family Feud had featured plenty of emotional moments over the years. What made it special, Steve said thoughtfully, was the purity of it. Dorothy didn't help Marcus because she wanted recognition or reward. She did it because it was the right thing to do. And Marcus didn't pay off her mortgage to show off or prove something. He did it out of pure gratitude and love. There was no ego in it, no ulterior motives. Just two people who genuinely care about each other, who changed each other's lives, who represent the very best of what humans can be to each other. He continued, We see a lot of family reunions on television, long-lost siblings, biological parents connecting with kids they gave up for adoption, that kind of thing. But this was different. This was chosen family. Dorothy chose Marcus, and Marcus chose her right back. That choice, that deliberate decision to love and support someone, that's powerful. That's what changes the world. The interviewer asked Steve if the episode had changed him personally. Absolutely, Steve said without hesitation. It reminded me that we all have the power to be someone's Dorothy. You don't need to be rich or famous or have special skills. You just need to be willing to show up for someone, to believe in them, to open your heart. That's something everyone can do. And if everyone did it, if we all looked for opportunities to be someone's Dorothy, imagine what kind of world we'd have. Back in their respective cities, though, only 30 minutes apart now, as Marcus had bought a condo near Dorothy, life continued but was forever changed. Marcus still worked too many hours, still took on too many pro bono cases. But now, he made sure to carve out time for Dorothy. Sunday dinners were sacred. Her birthday was celebrated like a national holiday. And at least once a month, he'd show up at her door unannounced, just to sit in her kitchen and talk while she made tea. Dorothy's life had expanded in ways she never imagined. She was busier in retirement than she'd been as a teacher. Between speaking engagements, board meetings for Marcus's nonprofit, and mentoring young people who reached out after seeing the show, her days were full of purpose and meaning. But her favorite moments were still the quiet ones. Marcus sitting at her kitchen table doing paperwork while she read, the two of them watching old movies on her couch, walking through the neighborhood together, greeting neighbors who'd all come to know their story. One evening, about a year after the Family Feud episode aired, they were sitting on Dorothy's back porch watching the sunset. Marcus was quiet, contemplative. "What are you thinking about?" Dorothy asked. "That day in the grocery store," Marcus said. "I think about it all the time. What if you hadn't been kind to me? What if you just checked out my groceries without really seeing me? What if I'd been too proud to accept your help?" "But I was kind, and you did accept," Dorothy said simply. "Don't dwell on the what-ifs. Focus on what is." "What is," Marcus repeated, "is that I have a mother, a real mother who loves me unconditionally. I have a career I love, doing work that matters. I have the chance to help others the way you helped me. All of that came from one moment of kindness in a grocery store. It's incredible." "You give me too much credit," Dorothy said. "I gave you an opportunity, but you did the work. You went to college, studied hard, got into law school, passed the bar. That was all you." "It was us," Marcus insisted. "Every step of the way, it was us. You and me together." Dorothy smiled and took his hand. "Us," she agreed. "I like the sound of that. I like the sound of that. Mining abide door with redo. Abide and way. Complace." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Two people who'd found each other when they both needed it most, who'd built a family out of choice and love, who were now spending their lives making sure others could find the same hope they'd found in each other. That's the legacy of a conversation in a grocery store. That's the power of one person deciding to care. That's what happens when someone becomes your Dorothy, and when you commit to being someone else's. The world changes, one act of kindness at a time, one open heart at a time, one chosen family at a time. And somewhere, Mrs. Chen, Dorothy's English teacher, was smiling. The chain of love she'd started decades ago was still growing, still branching out, still changing lives. That's what love does. It multiplies. It endures. It transforms everything it touches. Marcus still wears that handmade bracelet every day. And every time he touches it, he remembers that he's not alone, that he never has to be alone again, and that somewhere in this world, a retired school teacher believes in him completely. That belief, that love, that family, it's what saved him. And now, it's what he's passing on to everyone who crosses his path. Because that's what Dorothy taught him. That's what love does. It saves you. And then it teaches you to save others. And in that saving, in that choosing to care, we all become more human, more connected, more whole.